Yeah, there's sound now. All right, when do you guys say something? Someone say something.
All right, I'm saying something.
Yeah, good. We have sound. We're all good. We're live again. I have jury rigged the worst thing. Like, yeah, it's bad, but it's working. So I don't give a fuck. I got it working. We're live.
Okay, so headliner, can you say something? Can people hear you?
Yeah.
I have many generator questions for you when you have a minute.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, what happened? Like, were you?
All right, so
you have to go outside.
Everything was
tell us all.
No, yeah. So everything was fine. Everything was wonderful. And the storm wasn't supposed to come for like 2-3 hours because the weather had changed. It was supposed to come like 10 a.m. this morning. Well, all of a sudden it shows up, and I look out. All of a sudden my computer just boom out, power out, my whole room. And so I go sprinting to my door because where I have my computer set up, it's like you can go out back real easy. So I look out back, and the rain is doing like this, going like this. I'm like, oh fuck. And this always happens once during a rainstorm. So I literally run into my garage. I grabbed an extension cord. I extension corded from my garage to my room and plugged everything in, and we're fucking live. We lost power for like 2 seconds. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Did you have to like put gas in the generator?
No, the generator's fine. Like, it's all running. It's automatic. But I just had to actually get the extension cord because the generator is designed for like the upper stairs, and I've never tested it down here. So I just ran the extension cord through the garage, and we're all working now. The way this thing drives me nuts. So the way the house is like wired, the basement is fully done and wired up. This is why it's down here. Nice and quiet down here. Nice and cool 24/7. It's even got a little soundproofing on the walls here. But the way that the wires are run, whenever we get a really, really bad storm, like the basement just loses power sometimes, and it's like fuck. And we've had an electricity.
So you're in a. Let me just get this straight. You're broadcasting using a generator from a soundproof basement.
Yep. Motherfucker, we gotta get this to work. It's storming outside. It's like hell on earth outside. There's lightning. You can hear it every once in a while. But yeah, we got this shit working. We're going.
Wow.
We got this. We're fucking ready. Well, we're live now, so I mean, hey, it's working. Duct tape and prayers.
I'm just amazed. The mental image of you broadcasting with a generator from a soundproof basement. It's everything I ever like. When Headliner and I were talking about like wondering what the story was going to be like, I was wondering like whether there was going to be gasoline involved. Like, you're actually out there like fueling up the generator, but no. But there is a soundproof basement and an extension cord, which is like. That's so much better.
Apparently, wearing my Deadpool shirt is unflattering, according to what I just got told. I got this shirt. I got this shirt for my birthday this year, and I watched.
Can you stand up and show the shirt off?
It's just it's like a picture of like Deadpool, like like the outfit he wears. So it's just that, and on the back it's got his face with like a weird smile. And it's just funny as hell. But apparently, it makes it look like I have giant red boobs. According to someone who messaged me.
I can't unsee this now. Oh my god. Ah. Wow.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, it looks like gigantic red man boob.
Yes, that's what he just said. So yeah, we're back, and I gotta open up all the things because everything shut down on me.
That's you gotta share your screen when you get a chance. That's big red boobs.
We also have some new things.
Wow.
But
well,
yeah,
this meta show is off to a good start.
It's a great start.
The big red boobs and the generator and the soundproof basement. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. Fuck.
The big red boobs. My inner 3-year-old is just gonna be dying laughing about that for like.
I mean, obviously,
day.
I could have just played it off, but I thought it would be funny to mention that I was told that. So back to headliner, as I was saying, as we lost power in this motherfucker. God damn, that sucks.
Yeah, Headliner
so-
didn't get a chance to introduce himself because power.
Yeah, Headliner, please introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, hello. My name's Headliner. I'm the CEO of Sniggerly, which is one of the corps of Pandemic Legion, and I'm one of the Pandemic Legion FCs who's running around in the south at the moment.
And you know, we don't actually have a special like section on the Meta Show roster for this, but we'll just go into it now because you know, you've been at the center of a shitload of drama recently, and instead of just like putting words in your mouth, and we've talked about it on the Meta Show a little bit, you know, there've been some clips of you doing Headliner Rage and things like that, and I wanted to just give you an opportunity to talk about that and, you know, tell people to fuck off if you feel like it, or just give your perspective.
About the recording or everything in general? Or?
Everything.
In general,
it's been a lot.
In general, like people have been accused. My perspective of it has been that people within PL have been using you as the excuse or the justification for why they destroyed a bunch of clones in one of your Keepstars in Imtaco back in the day.
Oh, we're talking about that as well. I'd forgotten all about that.
Well, there's that, and then there's another one, and just okay. people are throwing a lot of shit your way.
Yeah, it's unfair almost.
Well, you know, maybe it's fair, maybe it's unfair, but it's a little unusual because, from my perspective, you've been you, and you've been a part of you know, the FC team in PL for a long ass time. So suddenly, all this headliner is so toxic. It's kind of strange.
Yeah, I mean, I've been around a long time, but I've flown predominantly under the radar for the best part of 10 years, I think now. So yeah, it's a little bit surprising to me too. But the cloning thing that happened in MO, it was really just a clash of different points of view, which I guess ended up in the guy in question exiting the Corp and the Alliance, and you know, venting any feelings that he had that may have built up over a period of time on everyone rather than perhaps just me. He was a member of my Corp, and he was a long-standing member who he worked very hard for the Corp for a while as part of the logistics team, which is why he had the roles that he had, and his time zone was off, so he wasn't as active, perhaps from the PvP aspect, as I like from my members, and sometimes he copped some shit from me for not being in staging and stuff like that, and I guess when he lost his roll call, that was the final straw for him, and unfortunately, he before I could amend his roles, he went down to the Keepstar and flicked a couple of switches, which is unfortunate, but not the end of the world.
Do you think that you are getting more flack for yelling at people? Like, here's a possibility, so I'm just like feeding you the answer here. And one theory that I have, I'll just, instead of giving you a leading question, I'll just point this out here, is, you know, people in PL have been famous for yelling at their members forever, right? I mean, Grath Rage is infamous, Shadu Rage with armor hacks and things like that. Do you think, you know, one possibility seems to me that, like, you know, people are all like, oh, Headliner is so angry just because there are these other people who are almost angrier than you, and they are not actively yelling at people at the moment. And so now you suddenly, Headliner Rage is sticking out more.
Yeah.
Perhaps, but I think those of us who have been around for a long time, you know, FC's losing their patience or their temper on occasions, with some people more often than not. It's something that happens, and I feel like perhaps the examples of my temper becoming frayed that have been exhibited to the world via Reddit are perhaps comparable, but not in any way, shape, or form worse than what we've seen.
That might be it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It seems like, and maybe this is just my view, it seems like with PL, and I know this might be hard to hear, but on the decline in the last year to 2 years, 3 years, from where its former glory was, like when Grath raged because they lost supers to BL, people were like, "Wow, that's some rage." Oh no, but this rage is no different, or if anything, it's milder, and yet they're getting more hits on it.
I don't know if it's about PL declining. You know, certainly there's that argument, but what another possibility could be, you know, back in the day, PL was not fighting directly. You know, Test. You know, Reddit is basically Test's home turf, right? Like Test has always really had an extremely strong presence on our Eve, long before Pandemic Horde. And, you know, do you think that maybe you are getting more flack on Reddit because you're, you know, in a conflict with Test?
I mean, perhaps. I mean, I have the parallel I would draw with what's going on now is perhaps when we were fighting with the Honey Badger Coalition 6 years ago, something similar happened to Makalu. You know, there were examples of things going wrong for him that were broadcast for everyone to see, and coincidentally he was fighting Test plus us, so you may be right. I mean, Reddit is something which I don't really get particularly involved with, and I find it hard to follow because it changes like by the second, but it's definitely changed the way people view the game from an external point of view, I think, and that's something that perhaps wasn't around in the days that Shadoo was, for example, raging about armor hacks.
Yeah, Billy points this out, that back in the day, rage was common. You had FCs that got really short fused really quickly, and there used to be a joke in Goons about it because they were all melodramatic about it too, when they would get called out for their rage. But I was one of them. But in some ways, I think nowadays people don't expect people to get angry over video games. They expect it to be quiet and happy and relaxing. And
the softening of the internet. Was
yes, yes.
And, that is an interesting point. Something that I think we were talking about last week. Maybe that was the week before. But the idea that like the internet as a whole has been
must have been last week. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was about the internet as a whole is a, you know, very different demographics now because of like the early adopter curve. Like, you know, back in the day with EVE Online, you had you know, only super nerds were on the internet and only super nerds were playing EVE, and now you have mommy bloggers and church ladies, and your grandfather is sending you texts, and it's just a different internet. So
that brings up a great point. My grandfather, when he texts, he even though he did really well in life, he didn't really do well in school, and so his texting is hilarious. It's like the best thing to read. Not even joking. Like the word text comes out as TET sometimes. Like it gets bad. Like autocorrect is the greatest invention on this planet for that reason, because it autocorrects him in such a bad way.
Yeah,
I love my
think
grandfather so.
you know, I think it's not just that like there's millennials on the internet and that things are more sensitive because millennials are sensitive. I don't think that's the case. That's right. We did talk about this last week, but Boat had to be out.
Yeah, I missed this. Yeah, sorry.
But essentially, a theory that I have heard, this did not come from me, was that, you know, there's just different, if you're interested in like personality psychology in any way. Oh, that's right, because we had Asher on, and so Asher and I went down like an MBTI rabbit hole. But like, there's just a lot different proportions of different types of personalities on the internet that weren't previously there in so much proportion, and they're more reactive to things.
Plus, from the education standpoint, kids that are starting to get into EVE now, they're 18, 19, 20 years old. In some cases, as young as 14 running fleets. You end up in a situation where their entire school from like the last 10 years has been don't bully, don't get angry, don't attack people on the internet, because they've been raised on the generation of the internet. And as a teacher, I deal with it every day. So that's a different thing too, is people aren't expecting adults to rage. It's like they get on with adults. It's like, wait, what? These people are angry? How is this possible? But we got to move forward here.
Let's you know, I want to shift. I'm gonna take us off course, Boat.
Yeah,
like
me
Boat
too.
is actually so like where I wanted to go, because we didn't really have, you know, we're gonna talk about the crazy SeaTac et al. Supercap fight in a bit, but the headliner stuff is fascinating. I want to move on to talking about Providence and what's been happening there.
That's where I was about to go. Perfect.
Perfect. Boat, why don't you take us away?
So for those of you that haven't been watching, PL made a play quick and early about a month ago or so, to kill Providence off and take all the stations. For those who don't know, when the station gets flipped June 5th, when the patch comes out, it shows who owned the station in big letters. There's going to be a monument, and also who built the station. So getting your name on things is something PL has been known to enjoy over the years, and we're going to talk to Headliner about this in a second. But Test, out of nowhere, goes, you know what? How about we just try to stop this before it gets too crazy? And in the period of, like, what, 5 days to a week, conquers Provi entirely. And the Reddit shitstorm when Test announced this on Reddit, as they always announce things on Reddit, was a lot of PL guys going, oh, you won't do anything. You know, you guys don't like soft hacking. You're not going to do it. And then Billy goes, but we just attacked the entire region in Esteria to kick out some renters. So why do we have a problem with hacking? Like, what are you talking about? And so, Headliner, that's what we're going to ask you is, how did that go from a defensive standpoint, having to defend an entire region with an alliance as small as PL is? Because it didn't seem like you guys had any help from any of your allies.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting question because, you know, I read a comment while you were talking about that in the stream chat, which said something like, if you can't follow Reddit, no wonder you've fallen so far behind the meta. And I mean, you can probably address points like that in tandem with this Providence topic. And, you know, I wouldn't say that we have fallen behind the meta and as a result of that are unable to adequately defend portions of space. I would say that, you know, we just haven't adapted to the N+1 meta where we've tripled or quadrupled in size, you know, in the last 4 or 5 years. And from a defensive point of view, that has an impact when we get sieged away from our supers by a coalition as big as Legacy. You know, Providence is not a huge region, but it's you know, it's a region which is easy to attack because you can cover it from a well-placed staging, which is exactly what Legacy have done.
Why did you not call in any of your allies?
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask.
Well, we made them aware of the fact that this was probably going to happen, but we never specifically asked for help because, you know, you have NC off doing a split deployment between Canid and Pureblind. GOTG have been doing things in Pureblind as well. Horde has recently moved to Geminate, and it's not really something which is so crucial to us as an alliance to want to call everyone to come and sit down in Providence and toast us defensively or help cover us while we toast us defensively.
Well, that's the question. So we had NC on, we had Villy on, we've had others on, and we all thought, I mean, I don't know how much you watched the show, but we all honestly thought that NC, their big move up, their new deployment was going to be coming down to help you guys in some way, or at least help the drones or do something useful rather than just go to Gehi. Being as they're the biggest allies you guys are linked to, they're like, I would call them friends between PL and NC. We always say NCPL when we talk about them. But Horde, though, Horde hasn't done much other than poke some renters in another region, though. I mean, surely they could have just came down to help you guys as much as they came down to help the DRF before, right?
I mean, did they help the DRF that much?
Yeah, they would take back fleets all the time.
Well, I mean, it's all of the you're correct. We are friends with NC, and we strategic allies with groups like Horde and GOTG. But I mean, it's at the end of the day, they're their own alliances in their own right, and they're not answerable to us, and they don't exist to serve PL. We work together on selected goals, and we just didn't make the choice to say, hey, do you want to come all in on Providence with us?
Yeah, Captain Patrick Archer pointed this out. He says they came down with Max to kill our Keepstar, which was in the ass end of, I think, what's that called? Where Russians live?
Innsmother.
Oh, Innsmother, yeah, over there. So I mean, they went all the way down there.
Well, I mean, that was a winnable fight. Like the point that Villy is making in chat is also an important one, which is there is no way that PL could realistically be serious about holding Providence if they weren't going to deploy their supers. And so when
that was my next question. You had a chance. So your final timer of your Fortas are, you guys are evacuating stuff out. You've got 6 days. And surely NC and PL could have easily walked down with their supers now that they own all the keep stars that used to be Freeport stars. Moving down via keep stars is really easy. So why not escalate it? Why not show test, hey, your 50 supers aren't shit, and just, you know, for lack of a better word, face fuck them.
Because, like, we're in a position where we came to Providence at the end of 2017, and at that point, the whole stations becoming citadels thing was just a speck on the horizon. It wasn't something which we were like, okay, we're going to go down, we're going to take the region, and we're going to, you know, this would net ourselves 70 faction fortizars. It was a let's go down, create some timers, mess around, try some new doctrines, which we didn't get around to trying in the last quarter of 2017. See what we do. NC might come and stage from the other side of Providence, and we'll just see what happens. We'll see if Test comes over from catch, and we'll just see where it goes. And where it went was that the Provi block was broken up and went to low sec or towards legacy, and then we were left to just kind of mop up undefended space, which we did, and then there was still no firm kind of this is the line in the sand where the stations will become fortizars. So we kind of sat around and thought about where we would go next for a while, and then FanFest came, the date came, and we were like, well, we're here, so we may as well just sit here until June. And if someone makes a coordinated effort to take these stations, well, then so be it. If not, we've got easy scoops, and you know, as it happens, the coordinated effort came, and that's fine.
That makes sense. I mean, I think it's a reasonable thing from a strategic perspective. One of the things that Villy pointed out in chat is that it's not actually an unbroken Keepstar chain to get from the north over to Providence for PL.
No, not entirely, but
absolutely right.
And that would also leave the entire north open for fuckery on a vast scale by us. So, speaking of fuckery on a vast scale, I think we should move on to the actual.
Yeah,
like,
so,
now that Headliner, I think I want to thank you, Headliner, for coming on, and please do stay with us. But I just want to give you.
Oh no, we need Headliner for the next segment.
I know. I'm just saying I want to compliment him for taking the questioning with good humor.
Yeah, he didn't get angry, which is nice because I expect a lot of people get angry. No, I'm saying a lot of our guests, when you ask them questions like that, they get really defensive and angry. And
I know it looks like if you browse our Eve, I know it looks like I'm an incredibly angry person, but I'm fairly mellow. If you catch me on the right day.
I think that's reasonable. So,
yeah, top story.
Yeah, this week, you know, really, it would have been Sword Dragon losing his Titan, but then there was this massive killing in SeaTac LST. Basically. Yeah. I mean, from my understanding of what went down, it was a move op, an evac op from Legion of Death.
Let me lay the groundwork of how this goes down. So 1,500 DRF tell their members, hey, we're going to a new home. We're leaving. We're done with this. We're gonna go hang out with Test and crash on their couch. And they tell everyone this, right? And so thanks to a couple of brain cells being rubbed together. Try, Red Alliance, and Lumpy figure out that these idiots, and I say idiots very loudly, because they sinoed to a regional gate 300 kilometers above the gate, not an Astra House, not even a Rataru, literally in space, and then tried to warp down to a regional gate and jump through the gate, with the entirety of EVE watching them do it. As they go to do it, they go down to the gate and jump through. Patrick is here. Yes,
a wild Captain Patrick has appeared.
So Red Alliance of all people, drop a shitload of carriers.
I'm gonna interrupt you, Bo.
I'm gonna
interrupt you.
Please.
Like, you know, at this point now that CPA has deigned to grace us with his presence yet again, I'm just gonna hand this over. You were heavily involved in this, and you actually predicted that you guys would be sieging the Keepstar of Legion of Death on the Meta Show last week. So that was pretty hilarious. But why don't you tell us what went down there, dude, from your perspective? You have the floor.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So the boat did a pretty good job, but let me start off with we seized the keep star. I think there was some ProGod posted about that as well in the test forums at 1300 because it came out a little earlier than I expected, and we put it in hull. So basically, when there's big CTA move up thing started, it was in hull, and all the clothing citadels in system were also in hull. So they basically had no way of staying there; they had to leave. And I think ProGod even tried to get them to not leave, but then he saw everything was in hull, so they tried anyway. And then they did something with Harder, like Bo just said. They went off a gate. And I went to grab a quick drink when they jumped out, so I came back, saw the supers jump in, and I'm like yelling at Garst, "Yo, I'm going to warp at 0, we're going to jump in at 0 and kill them all." And he says, "No, they have 120 supers." So I'm like, that's not funny, they never have that many. All of a sudden, they actually do have 120 supers, when they normally pull like 40 to defend their like Sotoyos and Fortizars and everything, so that was a big surprise. So we did the quick numbers, then I noticed they had Hells, fuckloads of them, which are obviously hyperspace, and they had basically no shield facts. So I was stuck in the headliner at that point, and I just started poking Travis, I think. There may have been just before that. So I figured we could do this, and then I asked the Holy Fleet to move their supers, if they were doing that already. They weren't initially, so they just started moving them as they hit grid, as we went in as well. So then we made the call, we can take this, we'll try. And we jumped in with, I think initially we had like 40 or 50 supers, and I'm gonna say also like 30 Titans versus whatever, like 30 Titans of theirs and 120 supers, and we tanked them for quite a while actually, until everybody else came down on it as well.
Yeah, that's gonna be my question. Since you are here, Captain Patrick Archer, I got home from the gym right as this started, and I look at the link of a dashboard on both sides and how the numbers look, and I'm salivating at the mouth going, oh my god, an XX move up is actually going to kill a super fleet, because they had you outnumbered so heavily. It reminded me of Asakai, where we went in so heavily outnumbering PL at the start, and then all of a sudden the world shows up. And Headliner here, I was told you were running the PL Dreads. Why did you pick on those poor Hells?
Well, that's a good question, and so we were talking about this when we were just getting the Dreads into the midpoint, and CPA was like, well, come in whenever, just within 50, 60 of these supers, and I was like, okay, well, we'll jump in now. What do you want us to shoot? And he was like, well, I mean, why don't you decide for the Dreads, and we'll focus on our supers and Titans. So I was like, well, I can see 20 plus Hells here and not many Minokawas, so I mean, I'm fairly sure even though it's 10% tighter and it's taken us like 5 minutes to load the grid, we'll cut them down pretty quickly. So we'll shoot them if that's okay. And we shot the 2 rags first, and the first one died so quickly that it was like, well, we'll keep milking this kill mail festival of shield supers until it stops, and then we'll shoot something else.
Yeah, I just want to point out, for those of you that don't understand, they were killing. So we went to this fight with Serbs because we wanted to horn kill mills. So I took a Serb fleet there, and I wanted to headshot Elise, so that's why we went. But Elise was in a Ferox, I had to try. But to give you an idea of how fast these Hells were dying, to go from Delve to there took us about 40 minutes. All the Hells had died by the time we got there. They were killing Hells in full 1% tie-dye. Excuse me. The worst tie-dye you can imagine. Okay, the game not cooperating. They were killing Hells at the rate of about 30 seconds to a minute a Hell. In that tie-dye. In real time. That means these Hells were dying, pretty much alphaing these Hells off the field.
So we had to do, when we jumped our Dreads in, our subcaps were 2 jumps from the Titan. And by the time we'd done those 2 jumps, and got everyone on and got the subcap Sino ready to bridge our fleet in, we had killed 2 rags and 2 Hells. They were dying ridiculously fast because they were not tank fit. Really, and
let me get a link here while you guys are talking. But why? Okay, so
why were they so vulnerable? Like, I mean, I understand it's move up, but like, why did Legion of Death? I understand that they were ratting fit, but like, what I want to get is Legion of Death just seemed to have no preparation for the possibility that their evacuation op would be attacked. Like, do you have, what the fuck was going on there?
I think they obviously left after Skill Yourself arrest them, out of 12 regions of solved, their entire DRF coalition left those 12 regions and moved into one region. So I think, first of all, they weren't expecting to lose that region within 2 months, so they didn't really set up an extract for the Tsar route. And when it blows my mind that they actually didn't when they actually knew they were leaving, because I think Kara wrote an update on Evru saying that they were coordinating with Test or trying to find a date for an evac at least a week or so before. I'm not sure if that's true. That's just what I'm reading.
Career, which is the guy that was running the op for the Russian move op, said that he was in Skype with Test. Now, I don't know, Billy might have other comments, and there was comments on Reddit that this wasn't true. But Career said to his own guys, I was on Skype with Test. Test ready to drop the hammer. Test backed out. Miscommunication.
Yeah, I think there was a bit of a miscommunication there.
Because Test has a shitload of Titan supers that probably could have turned this pretty quickly, at least into a meat grinder. But it didn't happen that way.
It was a pro-god op, from what I understand.
Yeah, pro-god, there was some supers and Titans logged in initially, and he just told
Billy
all
says pro-god. I mean, we passed 6 Ragnaroks from Test on our way there that were jumping out. So
I think at the time they were in range, that that the Holy Fleet arrived, so they probably didn't want to commit anymore, and XX was in max panic, get the fuck out mode, and at that point, obviously, there's no point in going in anymore.
Kind of came out of nowhere too, like that. That's the thing. So headliner, and then this is a question for you. You have DRF and you have Tri, and both of them you've worked with or against at some point in the last 2-3 years. Why did you shoot XX over Tri? Is it because they contacted you first?
Well, I haven't spoken to anyone in XX for some time. I had a conversation with UAX Death a little while before they moved into Innsmother, and it was just a chat, between friends. It wasn't like we need help kind of thing. It was what are you doing? And I think it was leading to that. But on the day, I was walking home just before CPA formed, and he messaged me on Discord and said, "Do you want to form? What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'll be home in 10 minutes. I can form a fleet. What's going on?" He was like, "We want to drop on the entire DRF move op as it goes towards Tappy space." I was like, "Okay, that sounds like it might be fun for a Sunday." And it's really that. It's not it's not born out of a harboring any kind of grudge or ill standing towards XX.
I call that boat diplomacy.
He wants some kill whales.
Yeah, I call it boat diplomacy because it's if I'm going to a fight with 100 bombers and I'm not blue to any of them, the first person to message me gets my help. It doesn't matter if it's Test, PL, no matter who it is. If they message me, I'm like, yeah, okay, we're helping, and I call it boat diplomacy. So
I mean, there's a great idea. There's a degree. I have a strong degree of empathy as well for Tri, what they have been doing over the last year or so in and around Innsmother, fighting large groups of other alliances who are kind of loosely aligned to work against them and fighting outnumbered in quite a remote part of the map. So, I mean, can relate to that in some way, shape, or form. I like this Lost Melon chat. This guy had both armor and shield tank on his hell. This dude, yeah. He was our favorite one.
Yeah,
he also has a hull energizer. He's triple tank.
Yeah, he had a hull energizer.
Oh my god!
And he also had cap control circuits. Yeah. So there was a.
What?
The fits are amazing.
Medium smart bombs too.
You had some dreads. Like in one case, you had a Phoenix who had he had an entire capital BPO thing. So you had about a 30.
I saw that it was like a 30 billion-esque Phoenix.
Yeah. So you had amazing. A lot of those. And so this is an interesting situation because we're going to talk about this in a moment when we get to the GOTG part. Actually, we could probably do that now and just roll into this.
Well, I want to bring this up here. It's basically like from like analyzing why Test went in or didn't go in. Legion of Death nominally is like moving to crash on Test's couch somewhere, but they're not really a useful strategic asset. So like some people are like throwing shade Test away and being like, well, why don't you throw in 4 Legion of Death? You saw in the quality of the supers that are getting blown up, like this is not like much of an asset to defend. I mean, if they could have defended it, that would be one thing, but I think it would be sort of petty to point fingers at Pro God Legend, and I'm like the #1 fan of pointing fingers at Pro God Legend, and here I am saying that I don't think that there is. Legion of Death hadn't really it's not like they had a long record of working together with Test in a healthy way. It's not like these are like long-standing allies. These are like, yeah, sure, you can crash on our couch. Oh wait, you just decided to drive into a like Mad Max town and do no preparation for move and put your dick on the table and got it chopped off.
I like to think of it like, all right, so think like the fall of the Soviet Union, and then instead of just like living in Russia and carrying on, is as the Soviet Union falls, they all pack up and try to go into China when China's ready to drop like a whole bunch of bombs on them, right? Like, it just doesn't make sense. From everything I've read and people I've talked to, and I talked to UAX Death this week because I wanted to get him on the show, it was a train wreck. Like, there was almost no communication. For example, in one of the Reddit threads, Billy points out, what do you mean they're crashing on our couch? That never happened. Now, I don't know if that was spin or what, but when you have a Russian coalition leader who tends to say things at face value, and that's Carrier, say, look, we're going to crash on Test's couch. Let's go, guys. Everyone pack up. And then, not even a few days later, oh, wait, they're crashing on our couch? But who are they? It's just kind of like, what the fuck?
I think, like, the amount of shit that Test leadership maybe got for not committing to the clusterfuck that was their move op is perhaps a little bit misplaced. I mean, from XIX's point of view, it was their space that they were supposed to be defending, and they had a lot of it and a lot of buffer to fall back on before they got to Innsmother, and they could have done a lot more a lot sooner to mitigate their circumstances, and that could have involved working with Test. And from Test's point of view, it's probably strategically it might be in their interest to help them before they get to the point where the ship is actually sinking.
Right.
But I mean, I think it's a little bit much for people who frankly aren't FCs, don't have strategic insight and experience running these types of fleets, to throw all kinds of shade at Protogod Legend, being like, well, you're a coward for not committing to something which was going sideways.
Hold on, though. I still think he was a coward for not committing.
Hang on. Let's get CPA in here. CPA, you're about to say something.
Yeah, no, I do agree that at the point where it was lost, they shouldn't have gone in. I think it was clear that they got caught by surprise by the shit we threw at them. I think if they had formed supers right from the get-go and would have at least moved them into range or closer, then we may not have gone in, because then we would be like almost 3 times that numbers in supers, and there was no way we could tank that for long enough for everybody to get there. So I do think at the end, like, the right call was made, obviously, to not go in when shit hit the fan and everybody's in evac panic mode. But if they moved it before, this would have never happened. But I think they just figured that we'll just go to 100 dreads to keep trying.
Remember, they brought them from ERVK. They chose to move everything to ERVK for short-term gain in Provi, and that puts them out of place to do anything quickly for this kind of thing. But I mean, XX kind of hung themselves when they signed into a gate and got tackled.
K-Color's gonna like this shout out I'm about to give him, but K-Color, when he would do move ops, he would always plan on multiple systems, just in case the one you wanted to go to was fucked. In this case, we looked at the jump ranges. That was the only system they could have went to. They telegraphed where they were going. They made it very obvious. And if they just talked to Test, ProGod, as much as I wish he would have jumped in, because I think he could have swayed the fight before Skill Yourself got there, and then Skill Yourself might have been like, guys, this is dangerous as fuck, we're not coming in, and then the fight goes really bad for Try, right? But you look at Test did a move up into MTO2, all the way up in the northern part of the drones. It did it extremely safely. They took a very long route. They jumped to a Fortizar. They did things right. They made sure they were absolutely not going to get dropped on their way there.
I mean, they did blow their way through it because they had to come to our space. And right. At that time, VGL was buddying up, and like 2 weeks later, because we moved to MTL, by the way, we're going to attack Try. So, yeah. Yeah,
like, you've seen this happen where they, everyone was watching Test move and going, okay, well, they're not attacking those people. They're blue to those people. They're not attacking those people. They're blue. They planned it out. This looked like XX, and not to say UAX Death himself, but they didn't really plan this out. They just said, okay, shit's bad, we gotta run, and ran away from a burning building without checking to see if there were guys outside with guns. That's honestly what it felt like.
Yeah, I saw the logs from, like, PGL posted on his forums where he said, like, everybody's forming, and then the XXX, like I assume it was Car, said, "What do you mean?" And then he explained that Fraternity and us and everyone was like max forming all the dudes, and XX didn't even know about that. And they should have gone in at the gate at 0, so they could at least jump the fuck out.
Yeah, there were so many mistakes there. Because the thing is you jump 300k above a gate, you can get Dictor bubbled. You jump at a gate at 0, the only thing that can hold you down is a Hictor. So if you kill all the Hictors, and Hictors are hard to keep alive when they're pointing something, you just jump through the gate and Sino out, right? And with tie-dye that bad, they probably could have got away. Because next door wasn't so bad for a while. There's just so many big mistakes. When they realized shit was going south, they probably could have starbursted a little earlier. They didn't. They waited till all the hells were dead. They did save a lot. Let's be honest here. We thought this was going to be a total massacre. And only 10 Titans died. Only. And I say only because they had about 40. Only like 30 Supers died. So they got very lucky. Very lucky.
As the last Nyx died on grid while everything extracted, Manny from NC Dot said on comms, you'd be happy to know that the NC Dot tackle fleet has just arrived. Like, they just turned 60 Dictors in. They took, because our staging system was on the same node as the fight, and we were in 10% tie-dye. We couldn't reship any facts. We couldn't bring in anything. We were trying to get Rocals in. And we were trying to bridge in the NC fleet. And nothing worked. So yeah, we're kind of scared about that.
I will say, there were multiple times there where it looked like, again, it reminded me of Askai, to where it looked like, hey, this is going to go really well. It just needs a couple of things to fall in the right order, and they didn't happen. And then it went completely south.
Because then, and it's interesting you say that, because I was in that position when I jumped our initial caps into Asakai, into you, and we went in with 25 Archons and 20 Supers. And we had a conversation before we lit the Sino, being like, "Oh, well, this looks kind of sketchy, but I mean, should we go and just hopefully it'll work out fine?" And I didn't have eyes on grid, and that was a mistake from my part. And we jumped in, and I immediately was like, "Oh, this isn't going to end particularly well at all."
Yeah. And
as it happens, you know, we got 200 Supers there really quickly, and then the
wonderful world of tie-dye. Yeah. And that's honestly what it felt like with this. It just felt like XIX. This could have worked out really well for them. They had a lot of Supers, a lot of Titans. Titans doomsday the shit out of everything. It looked like the Dreads and the Facts were going down for try, and it just didn't work out in the end. We have to actually move on to the next one, because the next one is a similar situation to this, and this one's going to blow some people's minds. But I want to show you guys an amazing new thing we got. So this is the new Nullsec Power Hour GIF. We got that made for us last week. I was supposed to show it last week, but I wasn't here.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it even has audio, but I don't have the audio on my head, so I didn't hear it. Hopefully you guys heard it. But yeah, we got a new one. And that's because we're going to mock our enemies, as we love to do on this show. And I want to ask you two, because you two know how bad move ops can go. Sword Dragon proceeded to lose his own personal Titan, along with a move op Titan and a move op Aeon. How the fuck do you do this? So I want to preface this with their move ops. They literally sinoed DO6H to CCP, one gate jump apart, because they were scared to get tackled, and then proceeded to gate through a gigantic, ginormous regional gate, to which nobody could save them with no support. How the fuck do you fuck this up this badly? Like, Headliner, as you saw this happen, what did you think? I gotta hear it.
Things like this remind me of the very first move up that we did when the Phoebe jump changes came, and we went from Curse to Innsmother, and we took a couple of those gates, and there were like Asher-sized groups or fleets along the way, and it reminded me of that. You know, taking those gates, and you know, we Darkside or Gorgon Empire were on one, and then we'd go through the next one, and then there was Black Legion there, and it's just like, I was kind of like, oh, I'm so glad that I'm not doing that, and I feel bad for those guys going through the gate. I mean, it's not my fleet, it's not my place to comment on whether they should have done something differently or not, but it's just a horrible, horrible feeling to take gates and get stuck like that.
So I will tell you, I was there. I helped set it up with Kunmi and Asher. I had to go to the gym right after I had done something, and we knew that they were going to do a move up. And the night before they'd done a move up through that gate, and they were getting ready to do it, but they saw Zungan's ult and panicked. So they said, okay, we'll do the move up tomorrow. So the next day rolls around, and Zungan and I, or not Zungan, Kunmi and I, we log off Dictors on the gate, on the WLF gate. We're waiting. And we see them form to go, but they only got 30 people in fleet. Like, it's fucking horrible bad for them. They got nobody in fleet. And they want to do a super and Titan move up. Well, they only get one Titan and one super. And we have the Dictors logged off, and we see them jump into DKUK, and they've got massive fatigue because they also sinoed to one gate over. Even though we're in Venal, they sinoed from DO6 to CCP, got fatigue, then sinoed to DO6H. So they've got so much fatigue that when they gated the WLF, they cannot go anywhere. They gated the WLF, and the second they gate in, we see them gate in, we log in the Dictors, we lit a Sino, I jump my Dread in, it lights a Sino, the Aeon decloaks, burns back to the gate. Then the Avatar decloaks. Now, we kill the Avatar. The Aeon's on the gate at 0. He's not aggressed. He could literally gate out and get away. So we start killing him. If he hadn't have sat there and let us kill him, if he had just jumped out and got away, we would have jumped our Dreads away. But because he sat there and let us kill him, that gave us time to set up bubbles on the other side, because an Avatar had warped in on the other side of the gate. This is in DKUK. So I bubbled this Avatar, thinking, okay, we're going to get a second Avatar kill, right? No, it gets better. Sword Dragon logs in at the Fortizar, then warps to the gate, lands 10 kilometers off, and sits there for 10 minutes. While we kill everything on the other side, we then proceed to jump through the gates, bump Sword Dragon, have all the Dreads that survived gate over, a first in EVE history, and kill Sword on the other side, and then move
What was he doing? Brisk Rubal, who has going to be on the Imperium ballot for that amazing CSM video that he did, an actual politician for the CSM.
We know what Sword was doing. So Sword
was he asleep? Like, so, why was he napping for 10 minutes?
No, what happened was he was watching the other side of the gate with his characters on the other side, because their entire Super and Titan fleet landed 100 off the gate on the other side, and were trying to defang our Dreads. So he was busy killing Dreads. It didn't look at his Titan as it sat there, because his Titan could have gated to the gate. It could have went 10 kilometers and jumped through like the other Titan did. He sat there, gave us enough time to jump like 20-some Dreads in and kill him. And then it wasn't until about 5 minutes into us killing him, he's in half armor, he lights a Sino, and then you hear on the, you hear him go, oh fuck, Faxes, they're in Declan, come get me, I need Faxes. It's like
Mr. Z losing his Covops on a gate.
Well, no, it's Mr. V had this happen once, where Mr. V had bridged a fleet, minimized his Titan pilot. NC Dot does the exploit where you can bump Titans out of a POS, bumps him out and kills him, and then he tabs back in. Oh, I'm dead. You know, it's
that
like
happened
the
to me
fear.
with not with any excuse of like somebody cheating to get me, but it happened like one of the few actual Matani lost mails out there is when we were like grinding through an iHub that was just like in Declan, and I and a few of the directors were just using like carriers, and it was like set your fighters on it and go eat dinner, and I went off to go eat dinner, and I completely forgot that I had the Thanatos just hanging there in space, and came back to the kill mail. I was like, oh whoops, I left Eve up.
That's happened to me. But I have to ask, and Cap Metric Archer, you're here, have you ever done that? I mean, I've done it with subcaps, but have you ever done that with a cap or like a Titan or something?
Oh, yeah. Yes. It happened the other day when I forgot my my Titan. I gated into my staging and just forgot about it. Luckily, it's never happened with people on it. But it's definitely happened where you find your bridging Titan like 100 kilometers off of Fortizar after you come back home.
Oh,
yeah.
That's great.
Those of us who run multiple clients at once, and eyes on different screens at the same time. I think we've all been there, and there's some empathy there for making a mistake and forgetting about it until it's too late to correct it.
The thing that gets me, and I don't, I'm very cautious with my characters. I've lost characters on boat like more Covops than I can imagine to be an AFK. But when it comes to my Titan, that never leaves my eyes. I mean, you've seen what happened in Askai. But this was Sword Dragon himself, the character on the Titan. That'd be like the Matani on the Titan dying while AFK, practically AFK out of gate, right? Like, it's just not something that's conceivable in my eyes. Like, I don't think it would ever happen. But obviously it has. And I want to ask you two about this. I don't know how long you guys, I think Patrick Arch is relatively new to the game. But for those of you that don't know, and this is something that isn't in our notes, but I do want to talk about it. The oldest Avatar that was alive, this dates, Avatar is 2008, it was constructed, died just a couple days ago in LowSec, on that one LowSec system where everyone dies. And this belonged to Oldma. He was the founder of All Corporation and the founder CEO of Intrepid Crossing, who has been around for ever, like a long fucking time. He lost his Avatar and his Erebus. For those who don't know, those are large rigs. So that Avatar is worth like double the price just because of its rigs. Because that's how ancient the thing is. There hasn't been large rigs in the game for 6 years on Titans. So that's an old Titan, and it deserves being brought up because that is a special kill. That is a very special kill.
There were, as you say that, there were two in C-L as well, which were large rig avatars that I noticed.
So
ancient. I think my Erebus still has large rigs.
And mine does as well.
My Nyx had large rigs, and I pulled them off to hyperspatial it for a stream once. So my Nyx has hyperspatials because nobody would ever drop my Nyx. And nobody has.
There was a Reddit post about Oldma as well. It made me feel bad because we had some dealings with him because they were renters from us when we were in Dronelands. But I kind of felt bad for the guy.
They're a weird group. Like like I remember having many years ago some extremely strange diplomatic negotiations that we ended up posting on Gunfleet.com because it was just like crazy times with one of their guys who was like I think this is where like the honorable Matani thing came from because like the guy was referring to me with like an honorific, like the honorable something something, and he was like trying to have like this weird lawyer negotiation. That corp is odd, but they've always been around. It's kind of like, you know, they're sort of like the Eve equivalent of like a coelacanth. They're like a living fossil, something that has existed from the dark ages of Eve and just hasn't evolved into anything different. And you're surprised that you're like, oh, it's been here for 170 million years and it hasn't changed at all. What is it still doing? How is it still alive? Wow. Look at what Eve used to be like.
They literally, all they've ever done for the last 10 years that I've known them is produce. They made T2 ships and they sold them. That's all they did. They would rent wherever they could to do that. First it was Cobalt Edge when they actually were Alliance of Merit, because they killed my Nyx there once, but the different story. We got to move on to CCP, please, because this is actually a big topic, and you two might have a comment on this, but I definitely do, because what the fuck are they thinking? And we only have a short amount of time, so we got to talk about
Please, sir.
About the warp fitting changes?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about this right now. CCP Lebowski digs a fucking grave deeper than I have seen a CCP member dig a grave, and then someone else comes along, and I can't remember which CCP it was, and then it might have been Lebowski, and then digs the grave even fucking deeper. Okay, so first thing first, let's talk about the first grave that was dug, and then we'll talk about the grave that was dug beneath it. So first they say, okay, we're changing the ability to fit warp, like refit when you enter warp. So what happened was recently they made a rule to faction warfare where if you fit stabs, you can't enter a faction warfare site. So as you go to click warp, as we know how the game works, it works on ticks. If you go to click warp to somewhere, it checks to see if like there's a bubble there, and it checks that in one tick. And then if there's not a bubble, the next tick you warp, you're safe. Well, in this case, if you go to click activate on a faction warfare gate, it checks for warp core stabs. If you have them fit, you can't go in. So what does CCP do? They take it up a notch. Oh, by the way, to keep them from refitting as they're about to enter the sites, so they pass the first tick that says they have no stabs. They then refit, enter warp, and are safe. They go, oh, we're just going to prevent anyone from refitting in the whole game when you enter warp. So that means if your Dreadnought just did a Dread Bomb and you're getting the fuck out because you hit Fleet Warp, you're now no longer able to refit mid-warp. What the fuck?
I think this is perhaps just an example of maybe some short-sighted game balancing, because I mean, I wouldn't say that the warp fitting thing was widely used by lots of people, but it was a really useful mechanic to be aware of. And like I remember multiple fleets where we've got caps and stuff and warping, being like, guys, you can refit before we hit this gate, and you should do that. And like 30% of the fleet might be smart enough to. Sorry, there's a fire truck outside, but
yeah, we can't hear it. It's okay.
Okay, but you know, like 30% of my fleet might be quick enough to do it. But I think it's like, just work the code somehow. I say that without any knowledge of how this works, but
right.
Make it so you can't refit within warp range of a faction warfare gate, not just being in warp.
There were so many better options for this, and then they took the grave that they had already dug and then dug a grave underneath that and go, we're also going to look at making smart bombs not hit people, like people take no damage while they're in the middle of warping. So one of the ways you counter 100 interceptors, obviously, is to smart bomb them or hit them with a giant doomsday, right? It's the only way to deal with things that are immune to warp bubbles. You can't stop them any other way, really. If they don't want to get killed, that's the only way to do it. So what CCP do? While they're landing on a gate, they'll take no damage until they get to the gate. The issue is if you doomsday or smart bomb, they have to get hit twice. Once mid-warp, as they're landing, and once when they land. Otherwise, they don't die. So if you only hit them once as they land, they're just going to jump through the gate, right? They become immortal. CCP goes, well, maybe we'll make them immortal mid-warp. They'll no longer take damage mid-warp, and that'll fix all the problems. And I think this has to be the lowest downvoted CCP comment in history. It just plummeted.
Yeah. I mean, everybody loves pipe bombs. That's odd.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's on their fucking intro video. It's what they tell all the press. Hey, look at this great video. Pipe bombing is the first thing they show.
I think as well, this is particularly relevant to the interceptor issue. Like, interceptors are pretty powerful now, and you mass them. You can't really. One of the only ways to deal with massed fleets of interceptors is with smart bombs, and you catch them either with the FC's not paying attention, like I was a couple of days ago, at a spot when you probe them, or get them on the gate if they don't go to a spot on the gate. And I'm fine with that. Most people would be fine with that. Apart from idiots that die with like Plex in their cargo going through Rancer who die to smart bombs, but that serves them right.
Well, where I see this being a bad thing, and Captain, we'll get your opinion real quick, is imagine you're sitting there. And if you're going to be immune during the warp process, so imagine you're sitting there and you see an enemy fleet decloak on you about the smart bomb. You just hit fleet warp. Okay, everyone's immune. That's what it feels like that statement goes, and it's kind of horrible. And it really breaks the game. But, Cap Patrick, what do you think? I mean, you guys don't fly interceptors that often, do you?
No, we flew them back when we were fighting FCON, just because everybody flew them back then, but we tried to avoid it because it is fun sometimes, but it's not the gameplay we're going for. But I remember back when we were fighting FCON, we bozoned them pretty much every time we could, and not all the times you can get them in bubbles. So we bozoned them, and they start warping out while you're still bozoning them, and actually gain damage over time. And if they remove that, that would be like sad because you can't boson as much anymore.
I feel like it gets rid of bosons, doesn't it? Like
not entirely, but you need to get them like as they have landed and broken the invol. Then you need to get them instead of just while they're landing, which is what most people do. Because we've had when they warped off once, they landed and then they managed to warp off because we didn't double wrap them in bubbles, and the server started catching up with the shit dying as they were already in warp. You had this trail of like 300 kilometers of wrecks in a straight line from them warping away. It was pretty glorious.
Yeah, that is one of the things. Just to sort of like wrap up here, like even if you're listening to this and you're like, well, okay, this is stupid. CCP did a dumb thing, and they're probably going to walk it back. Like, that's great. What is infuriating, I think, is not so much the changes themselves, though they might be dumb. It's that these are issues that are non-issues. Nobody is going, man, this is a thing, let's devote some dev time. So like when you're seeing the devs going like, oh hey, there's this really weird edge case involving faction warfare and refitting with stabs and this thing with smart bombs, and everybody's like, have you seen your Entosis gameplay?
Right, there's so many better things they could be fixing. This honestly feels like, and it might be horrible, it's the water cooler talk leaking to the public. It's the things that in passing, as one dev walks by another goes, maybe this is something we should look at. And the other dev going, yeah, no, not really. And then that getting on Reddit, right? Yeah, that's what it feels like. That's a pretty
good explanation. Like, it is basically like idle office chatter that ended up
and a dev post.
It to, yeah. Like, what? Well, speaking of what an idle office chatter, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here.
Oh, I want to... One last thing, hold on. 1 second, we forgot to mention this. This is important. Game-breaking news right here. MOA is fail cascading. We didn't get to talk about this. They're dead. They're done. They have given up. Their leadership's AFK. A couple of line members are like, look, we've been kicked out of the GOTG. We're going to LowSec. And the acting CEO just robbed them this morning. Stole 74
So that was
bill.
the acting CEO of MOA as a whole, or for this corporation?
I think it was the executor corp of MOA, from what Wibla said. But I'm gonna have to double check that.
That seems unlikely. There was 75 bill. That seems.
It seems like a very small amount, but for those that don't know, thanks to the wonderful work of the Black Hand, MOA's been operating at a negative for about 6 months. So they've been losing money, hemorrhaging money on a massive scale, and can't even afford their SRP. So
it kind of makes sense that MOA only like it actually would fit that organization if it's headless and is so actually. And Dale Chandler too is pointing out that it's just their SRP fund, but yeah, it makes sense that they would only have very small amount.
I don't know. It's a big deal because again, MOA is one of those things like a fucking gnat on the wall that just never goes.
Well,
away.
you would like Intrepid Crossing. You'd never expect MOA. I would have never expected MOA to fail your Cascade.
There's like 5 other alliances and corps in GOTG that I expected to be long dead before MOA. Considering how well they last, but
I want to invite MOA to NPC Delph. I would feel weird and strange if MOA wasn't running around and trying to obsessively convince themselves that they're totally beating Goodswarm. So, like, if MOA wants to come live in NPC Delph, that would be just the best thing ever.
You can also join the QFC. Applications are open. Any corps in MOA that want to leave MOA, we have a new SIG opening up for people that steal things.
I want them to come to NPC Delph and just go back to doing what they're doing in the north and just trying to constantly kill us, because that would be just Titan fodder for us. But
dude,
please come live in NPC Delph.
There's a reason MOA hasn't came to Delve in a long time. They actually had a ban on Delve. They could not go further than White Ash 2 and Fountain, because one time they came down, I'm not even kidding, there were 8 gates with a Titan on every gate waiting to Doomsday for 8 freaking gates. I was going through with it. I had my Titan on one of them, and that's the only reason I know this. Titans were taking gates to try and get ahead of them, to Doomsday them again after Doomsday them the first time. So, that was a glorious shithole. Hey, but thank you guys for coming along. Captain Patrick Archer stopping by, of course, unexpectedly, awesomely. And Headliner for coming on and chatting and having a great picture. I think that's the best one since the bear that we had for
my
death.
Discord one?
No. We made you a custom image for your background.
Oh, wait, I haven't seen it. Where's that?
Oh, you can look at the stream. It's on the stream.
Poet had to actually explain to me what it was. That apparently there's.
Okay, I saw this in the chat. It's the inside of a car roof, right?
That's
it's
apparently a headliner as opposed to just a poultry out.
I was wondering what that was for the longest time. I thought it was.
I was so confused too. I looked at it and I'm like, "Is this some?" Because like it's this really weird grid pattern. I'm like, "What is that?" Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah, that happened.
A
little bit of boat humor.
Really great, horrible joke. Bad puns. But yeah, that's it. We're down to time today. Yeah, that's it. We're done. That's it.
All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for coming, and we will catch everybody else next week.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching The Meta Show.